What it do, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Aladdin. Today we got Joe Rogan with a new Discovery satellite image of supposedly it's the lost city of Atlantis, and he explains what he sees and etc. And if you're new to this channel and you want to be unplugged from the Matrix, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for all this daily content like this. So here we go.
Something that we may have dismissed earlier. Growing up, we used to believe stories about the legendary Santa Claus, the bringer of Christmas presents. But then, we grew up. We realized that the man we all once adored was only a myth. We believed we knew this man, but we were wrong. Today, the scientific community rejects the existence of an eye of its time. But two scholars, Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson, claim to have proof that once it did exist. If their claims have substance, they can change the history of mankind and how we see the universe. Hello there, and welcome back to Factnominal. Today, we'll find out if the nation of Atlantis was just a fable, a story to be passed on, or if it was something more tangible.
Whoa!
In the middle of our vast ocean is Atlantis, our mighty empire.
The mystery of a mother empire which stretched her civilization to both sides of the Atlantic has been the fascinating subject of thousands of books and millions of words of controversy by science, literature, and even today's headlines. Suddenly, you are living thousands of years ago in a civilization even more advanced
Look at that.
scientifically than our own.
More than just mythology? Atlantis, the legendary island that sank beneath the waves in the distant past, taking down with it an advanced civilization. Will we ever find it? Or more importantly, did it even exist? In a podcast with famous podcaster Joe Rogan, two scholars, Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock, suggest that the legendary place did actually exist, and hinted that the proof lay in the date provided by Plato. Graham mentioned Plato's date of 9600 BC, which is about 11,600 years ago. That might not seem like much, but it coincides with the end of the Younger Dryas period, which began with a mysterious rise in sea level, mass extinction of animal species that also matches the time period where global temperature shoots up and the last of the ice caps collapses into the sea, causing an enormous rise in sea level.
It's an incredibly important day because the Younger Dryas begins 12,800 years ago with a cataclysm, with a puzzling, mysterious rise in sea level at the same point, 1,000 years of freezing temperatures, mass extinctions of animal species all over the world, and then 11,600 years ago, global temperature shoots up, the last of the ice caps collapse into the sea level rises enormously. That is the date that work starts at Göbekli Tepe, and it's a point I've made many times, but it's really worth making because archaeologists roll their eyes every time you say the word Atlantis.
Now, according to precisely the date that Plato, which is the major reference to Atlantis, gives for the total destruction of Atlantis. The scholar pointed out that Plato's ancestor Solon visited the Egyptian priests to learn from them, because Athens had apparently lost an important record of their past, thanks to a flood that swept the entire civilization. However, the Egyptians had this record stored within their archives. And if you could recall, this coincided with the end of the Younger Dryas, which marks the beginning of what scientists call Meltwater Pulse 1b, one of the biggest overnight sea rises in history. Plato in his description made quite a detailed explanation of what the ancient nation may have looked like.
The Eye of Sahara. Do your research, Google it. That look just like the Eye of Sahara. Matter of fact, next video after this one, like I said, if y'all sub, y'all want to be unplugged from the Matrix, I got y'all in the next video about the Eye of Sahara Desert. I feel like there's pieces here connecting, guys. This is wild, but it's facts. This is why I love history. If I could go back to grade school and become an archaeologist, I would. I would love to travel the world and explore these prophecies myself.
Plato in his description made quite a detailed explanation of what the ancient nation may have looked like, and NASA's satellite images of a few places on Earth do fit his description. According to Graham and Randall's reference to Plato, Atlantis was made of alternating zones of sea and land, larger and smaller, and circling one another. There were 2 of land and 3 of water, which he turned as with a lathe out of the center of the island, equidistant every way. Satellite images prove Atlantis' existence? The first hint is the Eye of the Sahara, because if water had existed in the Eye of the Sahara, there would have been 3 rings of water and 2 rings of land, as Plato stated.
No.
The second indication, as hinted by the
never
2
mind, there it
scholars,
is.
was in reference to Plato's text. The mountains of the island of Atlantis were celebrated for their size and beauty, and the surrounding mountains of the city flow with rivers. This part of the island looked toward the south and was sheltered from the north. It just so happens that the Eye of Sahara is encircled by a chain of mountains on the north side, and satellite imagery shows traces of many ancient rivers on the sides of these mountains. There are many other clues that point out that the Eye of the Sahara could well be the legendary Atlantis. For example, Plato also said that the city had elephants in great numbers, and archaeologists have found many skeletal remains of elephants in the area. And there are also rock art depictions of elephants there. Could this just be a coincidence, or was Plato's description of a fallen nation more than just a myth? Could it be? One scientist suggested that since ancient times, humans tend to settle close to water. And because we require water to survive, this has always attracted many people, even though watery areas do come with a level of uncertainty. When compared to dry climates, waterways are always volatile. Natural erosion changes the ground over time, but catastrophic cases such as flooding or earthquakes allow water to move more violently. And there is no doubt that human history is filled with calamities that may not have wiped out generations but did cause significant damage. These events, passed down through generations and repeated through oral histories, have a tendency of becoming larger than life. So it could be that in the ancient world there was little distinction between the concepts of fiction and non-fiction with regard to storytelling, given that they viewed their own existence as part of a larger, what we might call fantasy narrative.
You see, that's just like what they did to the Bible. They made new books. We don't know if they're non-fiction or fiction. They took out the Book of Enoch. They were trying to hide facts about that. Probably made their own fictional characters. It's the same thing with Atlantis and stuff like that, like that kind of history. And there's only one way to know which one is true and which one is not. So, I mean, it's insane.
About the universe itself. With that in mind, they would not have placed a high priority on clearly stating what was totally real and what was totally unreal. Atlantis could have been a real city in accordance with the theory described, but Plato might have adopted that truth for the purpose of crafting a story that would be, in his eyes, even more true than some mundane fact like Atlantis actually exists. The ancient Greeks may not have cared as much about the distinctions we cling to in the modern world, and scientists might have been too quick to dismiss it, especially when NASA's satellite images of certain places on Earth seem to tick the box. Unlike many legends whose origins have been lost in the mists of time, we know exactly when and where the story of Atlantis first appeared. The story was first told in 2 of Plato's dialogues, the Timaeus and the Critias, written about 360 BC. But according to Ken Feder, a professor of archaeology, in his book, The Encyclopedia of Dubious Archaeology, he hints that the ancient philosopher's description isn't as straightforward as we think. He suggested that Atlantis might not be as honorable as everyone believes, and the ancient philosopher's description isn't as straightforward as we think. He suggested that Atlantis might not be as honorable as everyone believes, and it isn't the perfect society, but is rather contrary, because according to him, Atlantis is simply the embodiment of a materially wealthy, technologically advanced, and militarily powerful nation that became corrupted by its wealth, sophistication, and might. The cool part is that Ken isn't the only one who thinks. Many scientists today assume that the Atlantis description given by Plato is more about the city's heroic rival Athens than a sunken civilization. So if Atlantis really existed today and was found intact and inhabited, its residents would probably try to either eliminate or imprison us all. However, in our conclusion, Plato might have done to Atlantis what Homer did with Troy a few hundred years earlier, where he based his story of Atlantis on a real setting and a prehistoric civilization known to ancient Greeks, one that Plato decided to use to best communicate his philosophical story. But what do you think about the whole thing? Do you think this nation once existed, or do you feel it was simply a story crafted for the purpose of passing a piece of moral advice? Tell us in the comments section below. Thanks for watching Factnominal.
Well, once again, guys, you're unplugged from the Matrix. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Tell me what y'all think about this video in the comments. Till next time, guys, it's your boy Aladdin checking out.